everybody, and welcome to Hair Station. Here we talk about Marvel DC and stars. Now today, I want to share with you my TASM 3 animation for my Spider-Verse series. But before we get into that, remember to comment, like, and subscribe. And yeah, let's get into it. We'd start with someone in a coat and a top hat. We wouldn't see his face as he walks through the labs to a room. Someone is waiting. He would open the door and sit down looking at the man with someone beside him. They would discuss how the Rhino failed at defeating Spider-Man. The man with the top hat would recommend how they had 4 other superhumans ready to defeat the Spider-Man. The man would tell him how to unleash the others as we rolled the credits. We would see Spider-Man swinging through the city and stopping crime. He would get a call from Aunt May asking if he got the eggs that she asked. Peter would fight the criminals and say he's busy. We could have a funny moment with Peter trying to fight off the criminals and Aunt May asking where he is, as it sounds like it's raining or somebody's fighting him. He would stop the criminals and find out they have advanced their weapons from Oscorp. Peter would be confused as Oscorp went out of commission months ago. Someone would steal the weapons in front of his eyes. Peter would be amazed, ironic, but seeing somebody in a black suit, a woman specifically, looking down at him with the weapons in his eyes. The woman would run away and Peter would be too confused to chase her. He would be confused because he's never seen her before. We would go to Peter arriving home without the eggs. May would get angry as Peter plays it off. Someone rings the doorbell as he gets confused. That must be Anna Watson's niece, May says. The one with the great personality, Peter replies. Peter would answer the door and see a red-headed woman who tells him he hit the jackpot and calls him a tiger. We would go to a man running away from the police as he's stolen a bag from the bank. The police would chase after him to his house as he climbs up the deck. He would go out into the window looking at the kitchen as it's been rearranged by somebody. His wife would be freaked out seeing that he's in dirty, scratched up clothes. The wife would continue yelling, waking up their daughter. Their daughter would walk into the room confused. They would put their daughter asleep as the wife would reveal that the man's name is Flint Marko. We would cut back to Peter and Mary Jane. They're having a good time, starting to know each other. Peter would get a notification on his phone seeing an alert from the new Spidey app. He would say he had to go, suiting up and swinging away. See the woman in the black catsuit arriving at a warehouse where she's meeting with a man with the top hat from earlier, the gentleman. She would reveal that the man is her father. She would tell him she got the tech that his boss wanted from earlier. We would go to Peter as Spider-Man arriving at the apartment of Flint Marko from earlier. Peter would sneak inside through the window, meeting with Flint Marko. He would make a joke about how he's never done something so flexible before and starts to fight Marko. Flint would beg Spider-Man not to get him arrested and would tell him that he's trying to help his daughter. Spider-Man wouldn't believe him as he would web him up and hang him on a pole, leaving him for the police. He would swing home. He would go into the back door of the apartment, meeting May sitting down in disappointment. She would see him in his Spider-Man suit without the mask. She would start freaking out, yelling at Peter. Yell at him up saying stuff about Uncle Ben, his safety. Peter would defend himself saying that he had to do it for Uncle Ben. May would tell him to go as he jumps out the house. We'd go back to the woman in the black suit looking at people from the top of the house. Spider-Man would ask her what she wants as she would say that he was following her in a sarcastic tone. Peter would get an alert on the Spidey app and looks away. He looks back seeing that she disappeared. Peter would proceed on his swing trying to find the woman in black, but he would pass Marko in the streets. He's begging the police not to arrest him and to help his daughter, at least help his daughter. The car out of nowhere gets shot and blows up. 2 men in black suits would run to the car, helping Flynn get out of the car. They would grab his arms, pulling him into another car. He would freak out, struggling to get out. She's going to the neighbor Anna Watson's house, knocking on the door. Anna would open the door, greeting May. May would say that Peter couldn't see Mary Jane anymore. She said that Peter was under a lot of stress and couldn't handle all of that. Anna would apologize and close the door. We would see Peter in a burning building. He's getting everyone noticing one more person. It was a person in a black robe, but they had a big, strong body. Peter would run up to them and touch their shoulder behind. Before he can help them, they smack him. It was the Rhino. Yeah, Peter didn't beat Rhino, but he didn't lose. Rhino was taken into custody but was broken out mysteriously. Peter would be super confused and try to swim away. But Rhino would grab his leg and slam him to the ground. Didn't expect this to happen, Peter says on the floor. We see that Rhino has gotten updated armor and is ready to fight Spider-Man. Spider-Man would try his best to fight Rhino, but each time he's thrown to the wall. He decided that he should use a weapon. He sees a pipe and throws it at the Rhino's face. The steam pulls off his armor. Peter figures this out and jumps out the building. He goes into the sewers and starts punching the pipes. They burn Rhino's armor and knock him out. Peter would try and jump out, but is automatically catched by somebody in a bird costume. He's taken to a lake and thrown to the ground in the air. Remember, at this point, Peter doesn't know who the Vulture is, so he's again super confused. Peter is soaked, but he doesn't suffocate. Somebody saves him. It's the lizard. He sees the lizard and starts freaking out. He gets super confused. But instead of killing him like the lizard was supposed to, he puts some gas over Peter to knock him out. Go to the two men from earlier, putting Flint down and removing his blindfold. The man in the top hat would tell Marco that he's been spying on him. He would say that he was the right person for his test. The man in the top hat, the gentleman, says that Marco has to help him. Marco would ask why he has to help him. The man would say that he could help his daughter, paying for her health care, hinting as his true identity. The man would tell the two other men to throw Flint into the experiment. They would throw him into a chamber and lock the chamber. The man would tell the scientist to turn on the machine. Storms of sand would wind around Marco. He would freak out and grab a pool. He would release the gas, but it would just knock him out. He would wake up in a pool of sand. The machine was off because the men thought he was dead. Marco would see that his body was sand. He would learn how to control his power and break through different objects. He would find the man in the chair, the gentleman. The gentleman would start laughing at him and saying that he was his greatest creation yet, his greatest metahuman. He starts saying and babbling to Marco about different things, but Marco was pissed off. He couldn't hear. He wanted to kill the man for turning him into this. The man would say that he created him and could take him away. We see Spider-Man is in a sleeping cell. He wakes up and sees Dr. Connors. Connors tells Peter that he's sorry. He thinks of it and decides to start telling Peter what's going on. When he starts talking, he gets shot in the head to the ground. Peter yells no and says to Dr. Octopus that he's going to kill him. Otto smiles and says, "I wish," saying Peter already took everything from him. Peter looks in confusion as Otto releases a gas which knocks Peter out again. We see Mary Jane Watson walking through New York City. She goes into a building and enters into the elevator. We see Hal Sparks in the elevator as they have a jokey conversation about different things. They arrive at the top floor and start to walk out. We see that Hal Sparks was really a casting director and used the interaction as a way of knowing who's auditioning for the movie. Mary Jane looks surprised and sees different people auditioning. We go to Peter walking up an alley. He's wet and tries to swing away. His web shooters are gone as he tries climbing up the building and falls into a puddle. Peter is confused and takes off his suit as it's all muddy. He throws it away to the trash as we get an homage to the scene from Spider-Man 2, as well as the famous comic book issue. We see as Peter arrives home seeing Aunt May. She looks at him in disappointment, but she just walks upstairs. He notices upstairs that he has scratches and bandages on his arms. He takes the bandages off so Aunt May won't be suspicious. He sees a picture of Uncle Ben as he falls asleep. We see the next day that he's been visiting Gwen's burial. He starts to cry, saying he failed her. Okay, a little bit of a pause. There's a scene from TASM 2, a deleted scene that really fits this. So yeah, here you go. Here it is.
Peter. I don't want to frighten you.
Stay there. Stay right there. Don't move.
Okay. But I'd like to tell you a few things, if that's all right. I know this is impossible to understand, Peter. I thought I knew what to say, but I don't. I don't know what to say to you, except I'm sorry. It's me. It's me, Peter, and I'm sorry.
You're not my father.
I am your father, Peter. And I want you just to listen to me.
My father is dead.
Peter, listen to me.
He's dead. Who are you?
I had to disappear, and I'm sorry. Understand that. I had to disappear to keep you safe. Keep you safe, Peter. I don't...
What? What? Say it. Say what you want to say. What do you want to say? Where you been? You're dead.
I'm not dead, Peter. I had to die to keep you alive. I had to disappear to keep you safe. Peter, listen to me. I had to disappear to keep my mistakes from catching up with you. I had to stay away from you to keep Osborne from hurting you. You understand what I'm saying? There was no other way to keep you safe. Peter, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
Why now? Why'd you come back now?
Your mother knew there would come a time in your life when you would need us more than anyone else. Before she died, I promised her that I'd be there for you no matter what. And that time came.
I know what it's like to lose everything you love. Now, we both speak for the dead. If you lose hope, then the Osborns of the world really have won. Your mother died for nothing. Gwen died for nothing. I can't come to terms with the world like that. I don't know how to go on without her. You don't. You take her with you. I'm not the same man I used to be, Peter. I used to be arrogant enough to believe that it was my destiny to save people, to save the world, my work. But somehow, after everything I did to hide my work, it still found its way to the only person on Earth who could possibly unlock it. And I realize now maybe it was never my destiny to save anything.
It's yours, son. And with great power comes great responsibility.
Go to seeing Peter bring his, quote, father back home. They arrive back home and knock on the door. Aunt May answers as she immediately sees Peter's, quote, father and slapping him. She rightfully angry, gets mad, and starts hitting him as Peter tries to stop it. Peter's, quote, father hugs May, saying sorry. She cries as we go back to the Black Cat. She's overcome with her father / the gentleman. They're having a conversation about somebody named Quentin dealing with something. She jumps down like a ballerina and hides in secret. This really shows how athletic she is and how good as a burglar she is. She did this before she became the Black Cat, or before people made her the Black Cat. The person in the shop is cleaning up the place to lock the place. The woman in the black suit swings down like it's in a Spider-Man type swing down. We see the woman in the black suit show off her skills and steal everything. The owner would make a joke about getting robbed lately or something as we go back to the Peter's house. He gets an alert on the spy app. Somebody with the same description as the person from earlier is getting robbed. He starts to go upstairs, but he remembers that he can't use his powers. He goes downstairs as his father is not surprised. Peter would say that he has to go to the washroom to avoid the embarrassment. We'd see Peter later after the dinner looking at files of pictures of J. Jonah Jameson at the Daily Bugle. Peter realized that he can't get any more pictures for the Daily Bugle, so he decides that it would be best to quit to avoid more embarrassment. The next day, Peter goes to the Daily Bugle getting ready to quit. He gets confused with the wrong floor since it's been a while since he's actually showed up. He gets confused as he walks into the elevator. They have an awkward conversation as MJ shows up. MJ mentions her wanting to work there as she didn't get the audition. This builds up chemistry between MJ and Peter. Peter apologizes for missing their date, but MJ mentions how Aunt May said they can't be together. Peter looks in shock as this is news to him. They schedule a date for one more chance. Peter starts to get confidence to quit as MJ tells him to go get it, Tiger, going to the next floor. Peter walks on the floor breathing, but out of nowhere, Doc Ock slams the window, breaking it. Remember, Peter doesn't have his powers at the moment. Peter tries his best to get everybody away from the floor and protect them. Doc Ock grabs one of his hands to grab JJJ and choke him out. Jay thought out Jam Machine would be in shock and not know what to do. Doc Ock would ask him who the photographer is for the Daily Bugle, as he takes pictures of Spider-Man and he must have connection to Spider-Man. JJJ protects Peter and says that he doesn't know who it is, and they send him an email, which technically is true because Peter sends most of his mail through email. Peter runs up to Otto, saying he's Peter to help Jonah from choking out. Otto takes Peter out of the building to a river. He starts to beat the crap out of Peter, giving him tons of bruises. He starts to saying that Spider-Man embarrassed him. Spider-Man ruined his life. We learned that Otto used to work at Oscorp, but when Oscorp went out of commission, he got fired. All of his ideas scrapped away, except one, the octopus suit. He went to work but lost everything, all the materials. He started robbing banks. He hates Spider-Man. He wants to destroy Spider-Man. And thanks to his new boss, he can. Otto sees Peter's cracked phone on the ground. He takes it up, seeing a text from MJ about the day. Peter tells him not to do anything to her as he giggles. Otto walks away, leaving him in the water, knocked out. Peter wakes up in the lake at the blackest night. He finds his way home and sees May. He's all wet and beaten up. Lucky Peter was on the news, so May would see that it's Otto's fault. Peter's father would be weirdly fine with it, just looking at Peter calmly. Peter walks upstairs getting fixed as we go back to Marco. He's at the beach looking at the sea. Two kids are bullying a girl who can't make a big sandcastle. Mac makes a sandcastle that's big for her, which makes the bullies run. This shows that Mac Gargan is a good person and can stand up for other people. The man in black's limo pulls up to see Mac. He says that he's wasting his time, and he starts to say stuff about what's going on. They say that Otto went to fight Peter, not knowing that they took Peter's powers away. That's how his powers left. Marco says that's not his problem, as he says that he has to replace Otto if he wants to help his daughter. He had 48 hours to kill Spider-Man, and he'll do to him what he did to the lizard. We go back to Peter starting over. His job is gone, his powers are gone, and he's free. But something's wrong. It doesn't feel right. He doesn't know what it is, but that's all he knows. We see Peter ignoring crime as he walks into a restaurant, seeing MJ singing. She ends the song walking down to Peter. Peter asks if they could have a dance as they dance. This is a cute moment showing that they truly like each other. Peter gets a text on his phone saying that May is in the hospital. Peter rushes off, leaving MJ alone. He gets to the hospital, meeting the doctor and his father. May reveals that she had a heart attack as Peter is worried that someone came for her. Peter leaves the room but he hears banging. Sand comes out of the vents and floods the floor. Out of nowhere, Sandman pops up and punches Peter. Peter runs away, but Marco follows him. Marco says that he hates Peter, and Peter is the reason he was taken away from his daughter. Peter runs and finds a hiding place. He sees Marco slide into the room and come out. Peter hears screaming and rushes into the room. Turns out Marco scared May so much she had another heart attack. All we hear is the line down as May passes away. Peter wipes away his tears, dropping his glasses. His sadness turns into anger. He clenches his fists and becomes Spider-Man. Powers come back. He runs outside, seeing Marco randomly passing his father, who's not fazed. Peter chases after Marco repeatedly beats him. Marco gets knocked out as Peter runs back into the hospital. He sees his father looking worried, but not as worried as Peter would think. Peter would run back, seeing Marco gone. We see him run back to MJ, but she's gone too. He sees her bag with a little note in it saying, "Can't take me now, Spider-Man." Peter would go home and get his TASM 1 suit and heroically swing away. Doc Ock and Sandman and Rhino holding MJ hostage. They see Peter swinging there as Doc Ock holds both MJ and a bus of people in his hands. Doc Ock tells Peter to choose, but he takes both of them. Peter starts to fight all three of them, but Rhino hits him, breaking his suit. Peter's mask would open up, with MJ seeing it in shock. She finds out that Spider-Man is Peter Parker. Peter would get up remembering Uncle Ben, his father, May. He remembers everybody in his life. Gwen, Captain Stacy, and he rises up. It defeats Rhino, twists Otto's arms, and punches him away. He runs to Sandman, but he gets away. The military shows up and takes Otto and Rhino away. Peter sees the woman in black and chases after her. He finds her on top of a building. Peter finds out that it's Felicia Hardy from the last movie. She says she knows who he is too, and the others. The others? Peter asks. The woman starts to seduce him, but as she gets away. Peter goes home having dinner with his, quote, father. They eat dinner, but they aren't talking to each other. Peter yells at him, telling him to talk to him for once. His father walks up unscathed and tells Peter that he's sorry. He's so very sorry. Sorry for what? Peter replies. Out of nowhere, green smoke starts to rise from the ground, revealing that his father is really just Mysterio. Peter gets surprised as his father, or Mysterio, attacks him. He gets illusions at the end. He sees May and Ben. He tells Peter that it was his fault they died, making Peter feel guilty. Peter tears up until Mysterio mentions the others. Peter yells, saying it was their fault, the criminals of New York. Mysterio says, don't you get it? He tells Peter every single one of them are just criminals that he put away. Out of anger, Peter grabs him and starts to punch him repeatedly, but his punches don't do anything. They're just green smoke. Turns out Quentin isn't actually there. He's in a room. Peter calms down and falls down crying. He goes to his bed scared that more of them will show up at his house. He wakes up miserable, not being able to trust anyone. MJ comes to his house to talk to him about being Spider-Man. MJ cheers him up as they have a little kiss. Peter hears an attack on the radio. Peter goes into the room to find out that his TASM 1 suit is wrecked. Peter looks for other suits, but he has nothing there. He tries to find a spare mask to put on over a sweater, but he finds nothing. We see a short montage of MJ helping him create a new suit and puts it on. Peter swings away with his new suit in glory. He gets to the city, but the police came there before him. In the weeks he wasn't there, the government hired up more forces. The city went to trash, and the cops on the ground are happy to see Spider-Man. Peter looks around the city looking for crime. He doesn't see much. He sees that a man in a coat is doing a trade at the docks. He suspected somebody like the Rhino, as they have a huge, giant body structure. Peter swings down as people making the deal pull out their guns. Peter makes a joke like, I thought I would have somebody better or more challenging or something. The man in the coat runs away and Peter chases him, beating up the criminals. Dark alley, between the decks. He looks around for the man, but behind him jumps out the Scorpion. Scorpion gets a good hit on Peter. He throws him to the water as Peter starts to get visions of Gwen, her father. He sees Uncle Ben and May. He says sorry through the bubbles as he gets dragged out by someone. He doesn't know who it is. He can't see them. We transition to Otto and Rhino in a crate, lifted by a helicopter. The gas is asleep, so they can't escape. Sand starts to scramble the helicopter. The pilot is confused and tries to call it in. The pilot is then thrown out the door to his death. Sandman rises up on the roof and to help Rhino and Otto escape. They escape as we transition back to Peter. He's in a warehouse. He can't see anything. Someone's talking to him. He doesn't know what they're talking about because, he got hit in the head real bad. They reveal themselves to be Harry Osborn. Peter looks in shock as we cut to black. Of course, we get a post-credit scene. We simply see the gentleman. He's walking into the room. He's talking with somebody. We don't know who they are, but we know they're the woman. He says that something's coming. Something sinister. I hope you guys enjoyed this fanfiction. I'm sorry if some of the Sinister Six characters that appeared in here were a little underdeveloped. I'm planning a fanfiction called the Sinister Six, based off of the Sinister Six, but that will come after TASM 4. So yeah, this is Hero Station, and goodbye.